One of the things that I haven't done over the last couple of years is keep you guys posted on all the different changes that we've actually made. Even though the cages look very similar, they're not. They're totally different. One of the changes that we made is a few years ago we were running 120 thousandths wall chromoly tubing. It's now 156 wall chromoly tubing. We've always run the 1018 cold drawn steel on the side struts. We're running a 10 millimeter piece of all thread that goes through the swing arm bolt. You've got bushings on both sides to keep it off the chassis of the motorcycle and to also center that all thread. One of the things that you need to remember, we have it in the instructions, but a lot of people seem to miss it. I mean, they're just like me. I rarely read instructions myself. So one of the things that you have to do is, this is a grade 8. It's the equivalent of a grade 8 bolt. You cannot get it any harder. But with the all thread, because of the harmonics of the motor, if you over tighten it, it'll snap behind the nut. So when you're putting these on, you just use either a red or a blue Loctite, and you just snug the nut up to where it's metal to metal and you're done, and let the Loctite hold it in position. It'll be there for years to come. Tubing, we've got the all thread with the bushings, which we about 3 or 4 years ago, we were actually going to the subframe, the lower subframe mount. And of course we were having some issues, so we decided to change it. We went to the strongest point on the motorcycle as well here. Yes, all the hardware that we have in our cages is all grade 8 or higher. The bolts that hold the sliders in place are a grade 10.9. A few of the other changes that we've made is we went to a chrome moly telescoping piece. We call this a telescoping piece because this slides into it, kind of telescopes into it. So we went to a chrome moly piece here, which is literally 5 times stronger. The cage itself, we've actually started tucking in tighter to the motorcycle. So you have to remember back in 2000, you know, when we all started stunting and doing freestyle, all of our tricks were a lot faster, no handbrake, and we weren't drifting at the time. We weren't falling over doing high chair circles. So we've had to adapt because we don't crash the same as we used to back then. So what we've done is we've tucked them in tighter. We've raised where the side strut connects to the cage. They used to be down here a little bit lower, but we've brought them up here so it's got more slider support, and it'll take a little bit harder hit before it flexes even further. Still transfers the load to both sides of the motorcycle, but makes it a little bit more rigid. Our sliders, they've always been made this way. I don't know if a lot of people know about it or not, but this is what they call 12L14 material. It's just a type of steel, and we have it, it's solid bar stock when it starts out. We bore the center completely out. We leave a 1/4 inch base in the bottom, and then we shape where it goes into the chassis of the motorcycle so that no matter what, we're standing off of the frame of the bike. So if something hits and it does get bent, it doesn't get into the motorcycle and it saves the frame. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be doing. So we always shape these to the motorcycle, giving it enough distance that it doesn't interfere with the chassis and doesn't do any damage. That's the whole idea, is to keep damage away from the motorcycle. When you're looking at purchasing a cage, you got to take several things into consideration. Number one, what does it weigh? Because if you've got a cage that's 25, 30 pounds and you're going to, you know, that's like throwing a small kid on the bike and trying to go do freestyle with it. Number two, you want to be able to keep your lean angles. Number three, you don't want it in your way as you're riding. Number four, you've got transfer of energy when the bike hits the ground. That's the key. I've built race cars, dune buggies, and everything else you can imagine ever since I was 5 years old. I can build a cage 10 times stronger than this bike. The problem is, if I do that, if I weld things and I triangulate everywhere and make it real strong, now when it is so rigid, when it takes a hit, it fractures the chassis. Keep in mind that if you've triangulated and you're welding in different points and your bars are real stiff, when that takes a hit and it bends, now the entire time you're riding, it's pulling this motorcycle apart. And after a couple of years, you're going to see stress fractures all over the chassis. And that's what we try to get away from. We try to make things flex. If this whole thing gets bent completely out of shape, what you'll notice is you can individually pull this thing apart. Because say this does bend the bolt and everything gets shoved back, right? I can pull the side strut off. I can pull this bolt off both sides and pop the loop out. Once I pop the loop out and I take my tip out, I can put it in here and the slider will move with it, not tearing any more aluminum or doing any more damage that's already been done. So you've also got to look at the fact that now you've got a couple of components that may be bent, but you can replace those components or replace the bolt or whatever it is that you have to replace, and you're back to square one again. You're good to go. Our cages ready to ship in the box are 12 pounds. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for longevity, transfer of load out of the rider's way, the weight, whether you can replace it individually to keep the cost down of your riding. We look at all of those things when we're building it. And what a lot of people don't realize is if you see the other cages that are out there, the other designs, those were some of the very first ones I ever made back in 2000. And no one ever knew about them because we were testing them for over a year before I even filed for all the patents. And what we did is we noticed that the more rigid the cage is, the more damage it was going to do to the bike.